Maybe we put them in space. Like maybe we build a big Dyson sphere on the solar system and say, hey, it actually makes no sense to put these on Earth.
One of the important AI clouds that our consumer device business will be a significant and important thing.
Famous dinner in the last week where he says that there could be an AI bubble.
I think what Sam said and what I fully agree with is we think AI is the biggest thing, the biggest era that we've seen today.
AI that can automate science will create huge value, and how the products we can build around that and the revenue we can generate, we might screw it up. Like, this is the bet that we're making, and we're taking a risk along with it.
Something big is breaking inside Silicon Valley. Sam Altman, the man behind OpenAI and the driving force of ChatGPT, has just sounded the alarm, warning that the artificial intelligence industry may be spiraling out of control. For months, Altman has been the optimistic face of AI progress. But now, his tone has shifted. He's calling out the chaos, the cracks forming in the foundation of an industry racing too fast to regulate itself. According to CNBC's interview and coverage from The Verge and Fortune, Altman believes AI is reaching a tipping point. And if leaders don't act now, the system might go to shit. It began with a single statement that stopped everyone in the room. Altman said the AI boom is unsustainable, warning that the pace of development, funding, and hype is accelerating beyond reason. He pointed to the massive demand for computing power, GPUs, data centers, and energy, all skyrocketing at rates no one predicted. In his words, the bottleneck is real. We've built something incredible, but it's also becoming incredibly fragile. Altman explained that companies are now fighting for limited resources, graphics chips, talent, even electricity, as they scale their AI systems. He admitted that OpenAI itself is under pressure. The cost of building and maintaining models like GPT-5 is staggering. What used to be a competitive industry has turned into a survival race. Everyone, from Google to Anthropic to Meta, is throwing billions at the problem. But Altman warns that this kind of exponential expansion isn't sustainable. You can't run this hot forever, he said, adding that the AI industry is dangerously close to breaking under its own weight. This is why Altman has been pushing for collaboration, partnerships that make sense, rather than endless competition. But behind closed doors, insiders say rival companies are already making moves that feel more like betrayal than cooperation. In recent weeks, tensions have reportedly escalated between NVIDIA, AMD, and OpenAI. Each company is fighting to control the next wave of AI infrastructure, chips that will power the next generation of supercomputers. Altman's frustration is clear. While others chase market share, he's warning that no one's focusing on the long-term risks, like energy collapse, over-reliance on synthetic data, and the growing gap between tech giants and everyone else. In an interview with the Financial Times, he said, "If we don't slow down and think, we'll look back and realize we built something we can't maintain or even understand."
Those of us who've had the benefit of living through the internet era coming upon us, mobile era, AI is bigger than all of that.
You know, there are not many times that I want to be a public company, but one of the rare times it's appealing.
And I don't think any of that is slowing down. You look at infrastructure builds and so on, which you all care about, those stocks.
Is when those people are writing these ridiculous OpenAI is about to go out of business and, whatever.
In terms of, can there be moments where people invest in things that don't come to fruition? Absolutely. Happens in every era. And I think that's what Sam was saying.
There are two subtle issues in AI. What is the addressable market and what is the addressable market for things that work? Meaning you make more money and the quality of the money is high.
That there will probably be investments made that are not the best of investments, but we still feel like the AI era is upon us and that we're leading the pack.
Line and bottom line grow. Palantir, we're in the business of a part of the addressable market where it works and it can be quantifiable, either commercially or on the battlefield.
There's a lot of people who are trying to create startups, AI-related startups, and just other startups. And what kind of moat anybody is going to have
in an investment around AI right now is, number one, are you solving a real problem? It sounds really trite, but sometimes I think people try to solve problems that don't really exist in the world.
Clearly, and over time, you're going to have Pareto optimality, meaning that every part of the stack is going to have to create.
You're a true business process that's quite complicated. I think in a lot of cases, people are looking for the shiny bright object, but there's a lot of just hardcore, like in my world. Like
AI spending will top more than $330 billion in 2025 and $500 billion by the end of 2026.
with really complex business processes. And then do you have access to data that is unique? I think the stat is something like, it's a good ChatGPT question.
The alarm isn't just about the tech. It's about humanity's control slipping away. Altman says the industry's obsession with being first has blinded it to deeper issues: trust, truth, and responsibility. He's watched as AI-generated misinformation spreads faster than the tools meant to stop it. He's seen developers push untested systems into public use, systems that could influence elections, economies, even wars. We need a reset, he urged during the recent World AI Conference. We need to stop pretending that speed equals progress. But not everyone agrees. Some executives believe Altman's warnings are too cautious, calling him the philosopher in a race of builders. Still, history shows he's been right before. When OpenAI started, many dismissed his vision of safe and beneficial AI. Today, even his critics admit he saw the risks long before anyone else did. Altman's words are echoing across the industry. This is the most powerful technology we've ever created. If we lose control, we don't get a second chance.
90+% of the world's data sits behind closed doors. It sits in university settings and company settings and so on.
And by 2030, it could take about $2 trillion a year to support the infrastructure being built today.
So can you access that in an appropriate way? That's what I think builds competitive moat. But I do think that we're moving into this world, I call it, of abundance.
That's more than Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Meta, NVIDIA, and Google's parent company Alphabet made combined in revenue in 2024.
You're right. Like if I want planning software as a finance person, I don't need to go buy off the shelf anymore. I can build internally the best planning software.
It's the start of trillions being spent in this build out of the fourth industrial revolution.
AI. Now, we still work, though, with companies like Salesforce. For example, you asked about GPT-5. They were one of our real reference customers. They're using it for Agentforce.
Big tech right now is doing the equivalent of building Vegas in the 1950s, where there was just sand. Dubai 30 years ago.
And so it's a good example where even the world of enterprise software, they're grabbing hold of this. And I think the leaders will lead by continuing
let me ask
to
you a
deploy
data
it.
question.
That's what's happening with this AI infrastructure build out. From the chips to the data centers to the grid.
People have also talked about if you have the data, that can be a super valuable component part. I had long thought
you're really building out the future economy for consumers and enterprises.
But some investors are worried where this is headed.
That Google should be the winner of this whole ballgame because it has my email, it has my calendar going back almost 2 decades practically, right? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Back to the dot-com bubble in the late 90s. The parallel is that it's money going into somewhat unproven technology.
And yet, one of the things that's happened even in the last couple months now is you, ChatGPT, and by the way, Anthropic and others.
And wondering if you end up with just wasted money.
At the same time, this explosion of AI spending may be masking other weaknesses in the economy.
To that same data stream. Now, so there's 2 questions. One is, should Google be allowing anybody to port into that data stream? That's what the customers are demanding.
A September 2025 Deutsche Bank analysis argued that without AI-driven investment, the U.S. might already be in a recession.
I don't know if you would do it. And B, if that's the case, it may very well be that this idea that data is the sort of gating factor.
GDP is being driven by all this investment. Earnings growth is being driven by all this investment. Yeah, it's pretty unbalanced right now, and that does create a vulnerability.
Google's data, and it's not, any software data, it's my data, right? This is what I've done with my employees, with my customers, and so on.
An investment bust.
Still, others see AI as the next productivity boom and potentially America's best shot at growth.
So we've all built connectors in. It's actually been one of the reasons the enterprise business has been so strong. If you look at our business in the last 6 months, What's really outperformed.
Will there be bumps along the road? Yeah, but I don't fear that this is too big to fail, given it's propped up by tech. $1 trillion on the balance sheet.
ChatGPT has been amazing on the consumer side, but what's really outperformed what I see is enterprise and API, and that's connectors happening.
$300 to $400 billion in cash a year.
So is AI infrastructure spending masking a weak economy? And what happens if that spending slows?
Again, as people come to work, they expect to be able to do an enterprise search and for it to be able to go look inside of my Slack and my email and my calendar and so on.
AI spending is powering corporate growth, stock market gains, and parts of the GDP. The biggest names in tech are riding a wave of AI-driven optimism.
So it's making it incredibly valuable. And then as we look forward, I think what you're starting to see is memory getting overlaid on top of that.
There's going to be more spent in the next 2 years than the last 10 years combined in tech. 2 to 3 trillion. You're only in the second inning.
It starts to really understand who I am, both as a professional or as an individual, and you connect that data to what I am and how I like to search.
Many of today's AI giants are bringing in a lot of cash. But some experts are worried it may not be enough to sustain the elevated level of spending.
It's blowing open the search market. I think we've gone from something like 6% share overall to 12% in 6 months.
Some companies are turning to the bond market to finance the infrastructure expansion by issuing debt that they plan to pay back later.
And I think that underestimates, by the way, because when you are doing a conversational search in ChatGPT, you probably go back and forth 5, 6 times.
That means if profits fall or the technology doesn't deliver, companies could be left with loans they can't repay.
That doesn't count as 5, 6 searches, which is what Google would count as. It counts as 1. So I think we're really underestimating how much bigger search is becoming, but how much share we're taking.
Consequences wouldn't just hit the stock market. They could also hit the overall economy.
Consumer spending, corporate spending, it all depends on how people are feeling.
Sort of economic question, and we were talking about the Fed and how the economy is going and everything else. And one of the things that's happening is whatever you think is happening with tariffs and everything else.
If people are feeling positive about the future, if CEOs are feeling good about growth prospects, if CEOs look at business conditions.
Is absorbing a lot. In large part, I would argue, because of the AI boom, the amount of money that some of the big companies, Microsoft, Google, and others.
They're going to keep spending because the money's there. If interest rates stay low, they're going to keep spending because money's plentiful and it's easy to get. If any of those conditions should start to...
And yourselves are spending on CapEx. And it trickles into the economy in so many ways, whether it's in construction or electricity or engineering.
Deteriorate. Specifically, inflation. If inflation starts to spike, it will change consumer attitudes. If the labor market gets worse.
Or energy or real estate, all of it. This either gold rush, it's either a gold rush or a sugar rush.
So all of these things have to kind of keep working in concert together to be able to continue this cycle or super cycle of AI spending.
How long you think that build out really lasts? Because it may take several hundred people to build a data center, but it only takes 5 or 10 to operate it.
One of them fall out of place significantly, it could change the dynamics of everything and cause problems.
But not everyone sees this as fragile.
I think we are so in the early inning. I think a lot of prognosticators want to call it like we're on the sugar rush. We're not.
Some think AI is simply the future of innovation.
The reality is it's an arms race, U.S. versus China. And they don't have time to...
It's more like the railroads or the build-out of electricity than anything I've seen. The internet, it turns out in hindsight, was actually a relatively capex-light build-out.
Because China is accelerating it as well. And I think that's bullish in terms of the capex cycle that I really view as an AI super cycle.
And so I think we are just getting started. Now we have to do a lot to figure out how to make data centers more efficient, to think about new ways to power them.
Call the spending surge we're seeing a capex supercycle. This is when companies keep pouring money into building out the infrastructure for this new technology.
AI, it is voracious right now for GPUs and for compute. The biggest thing we face is being constantly under compute.
When we talk about super cycles, we think about an accelerated pace of something. We talk about sort of a peak, things that we have seen in the past when huge changes come about.
That's why we launched Stargate. That's why we're doing the bigger builds, as you see, with Microsoft, but with Oracle, CoreWeave, and so on. And we're just getting...
This is the biggest tech spending trend we've seen in the last 40, 50 years. There's a view that it typically ends a CapEx cycle after 3 years. The super cycle means that this could go on not just 2 or 3 years, 5, 7, 10 years.
And what is the addressable market for things that work? Meaning you make more money and the quality of the money is higher. So top line and bottom line grow.
That's why by definition it's really an AI tech super cycle.
To sustain this level of spending, companies need a few things.
Palantir, we're in the business of a part of the addressable market where it works and it can be quantifiable, either commercially or on the battlefield.
Favorable borrowing conditions, strong profits to self-fund expansion without relying entirely on debt, and confident investors.
Clearly, and over time, you're going to have Pareto optimality, meaning that every part of the stack is going to have to create more value.
So they can keep supporting high valuations and remain willing to fund long-term bets in the space.
Then they charge. That's just obvious. And if that doesn't happen, it will be a bubble. And, I'm sorry, short sellers can't tell the difference between products that work and products that don't.
But certainly as we go through the rest of these incredible estimates of how much capital is going to be required,
these numbers should show you that there's a part of the market that, to quote you, is printing cash, and it looks like that part of the market is the part we own. There's a separate question, by the way.
Build out this infrastructure to avoid seeing electricity prices to continue to go up for the public is going to require a lot of debt over time.
Which I think is equally relevant. What part of the GDP growth is available for workers, what we call worker available GDP?
Once that cash flow has been used up, that'll be a real sign that we're getting into the more, dicey or precarious stage.
And that's like one of the unique things about Palantir is whether it's on the battlefield, like the people writing the scripts for these very complicated operations.
Of that process.
If AI companies flood the market with new debt, or if interest rates stay high, investors could pull back.
Doing things on the factory floor are being enhanced by our product. And those two questions are going to define arguably the future of what happens in this country.
Exposing a fragile national economy. While AI spending is booming, much of the U.S. economy isn't sharing in the gain.
Does GDP grow because of AI, which only can happen if there's Pareto optimality, or in what the way we see it, the customer pays.
This spending may make the U.S. economy look healthy on the surface, but the averages may be obscuring a deeper divide.
Less than the value they create, which is abnormal, not exactly equal Pareto optimality. And that, it's unknown, honestly. You have this massive growth.
There's this notion of a K-shaped economy that really started to take root about 5 or 6 years ago.
But currently, as far as I can tell, the two companies he's shorting are the ones making all the money, which is super weird. Like the idea that chips and ontology.
A K-shaped economy means that while some people, mostly investors and homeowners, are doing better than ever, others are falling behind.
Batshit crazy. But leaving that aside, there's a bigger question, which is the average American believes AI is happening.
One speed is people who are asset holders, like who own stocks, who own large amounts of real estate. They're doing very well. At the bottom part of that,
they're just not sure if it's going to happen for them or it's just me getting rich. And that's the battle we have to fight, because if you want a sane society.
At K are people who don't have exposure to those kind of things and are kind of just living paycheck to paycheck and are trying to save a little bit of money here and there.
You can't just have GDP growth for us and no GDP growth for them. So like finding out what is available for the worker and proving it's available for the worker.
They're not getting very much return on the money that they do save, and therefore they fall further and further behind.
To be slightly political, you can't, if the AI revolution is real, it has downstream consequences. Like, how can you have an AI revolution and an open border?
Consumer spending, which is typically the cornerstone of American economic growth, has been showing mixed signals.
In the air. I was really struck by that. I was like, this looks like the motherboard of a computer.
Yeah, it looks like the motherboard of a computer. You start to see like how the planets in like a lot of these.
High-income earners are the driving force behind most retail sales, but lower-income Americans are struggling to keep up.
Sci-fi movies, a lot of them have that R2-D2 look on the outside of them because they've been
covered in data centers.
Yeah, which is kind of wild.
When the spending comes from people who are at higher income levels, it masks what the greater fundamentals are for the economy.
You know where we're going and you're not telling us. Do you know what's happening?
I don't.
You promised, dude.
I don't know. I mean, I have all my guesses. Like, I do guess that a lot of the world gets covered.
Most money. They can weather inflation, but if your income's not going up as fast as inflation is going up, that's not a good thing, and it hurts more when you're at the bottom end of the ladder.
In data centers over time.
Do you really?
But I don't know, because maybe we put them in space. Like, maybe we build a big Dyson sphere on the solar system and say, hey, it actually makes no sense to put these on Earth.
Some argue that AI could be exacerbating the divide by benefiting asset holders, while the bottom half of the economy sees little to no lift. Is also struggling. Unemployment is low, but hiring has slowed, and long-term joblessness hit nearly 26% in August 2025.
The labor market looks very, very weak to me. It's on the precipice of a more pronounced decline.
All the growth has come from government-related sectors, things that are dependent on government spending, particularly healthcare jobs and government jobs.
So where does this leave us? If Altman's right, the AI boom might soon face a harsh correction. Not because innovation stopped, but because reality caught up. Every major AI company is chasing the next breakthrough. But if they ignore the warning signs, the financial strain, the infrastructure collapse, the ethical vacuum, it could all come crashing down. The AI revolution isn't slowing, but maybe it should. As Altman put it, we built a future that's moving faster than we can think. The question is, will we survive the speed?